Hello everyone, so I have Mr. Bowie here with me today, and as promised, I wanted to talk about how I pose my reborns. So if you guys haven't seen the last video, I pretty much just talk about how important it is for me to have my reborns always looking extremely realistic and just ready to be picked up and cuddled, because I think that presentation is a very important deal, and since I've had reborns for so long, I've kind of learned these tips and tricks. I think that this is just kind of an unflattering sort of posture, and his arms look pretty unnatural. That's just how his arms look when you lay him down, because there isn't really much to kind of support that, so they just splay out. And of course you can kind of put them up, but then that also looks a little like weird and unnatural in its own little way. I will say that since I've been collecting, reborn sculptors have gotten so much better, and a lot of the times you don't really have to do too much to make your doll look a little bit more realistic. Kind of spruce this up a little bit, I'm going to show you a few tips, and you've probably seen this setup before but didn't really know exactly how it was. The only thing that you need to pose your reborn inside of their crib are two really thick fluffy blankets. They can either be baby blankets or they can be blankets that you find around the house. As long as they're relatively small, I think it would work out just fine. And I usually pick blankets that I don't really love the designs on, so I'm not a big fan of brown, and then this design is just a little weird. So I have that, and then I also have one decorative blanket that I want to display inside of the crib. So the first thing that I do is I just fold the blanket hamburger style, if you guys know what I'm talking about, and then you just take the edge here and you roll it up. And I usually, if you have like a bigger blanket and a smaller blanket, I usually use the smaller blanket for the feet. So you just kind of curl it up, because it's gonna splay out a little bit more, which is why I typically use it for the feet. And then I also already have this blanket folded hamburger style, because this one is pretty big, and I was thinking, like, you know, it's gonna be kind of hard to do on camera, so I'm just going to roll this one up as well. So now that we have that guy rolled up, depending on the size of your reborn, that should be pretty good. And you're just going to connect the ends together. Yet again, it doesn't really have to be pretty, because we're kind of just going to throw something right over it. So there's that. So now you got kind of a little form to put your reborn in so that it supports the butt, curls in the arms, and then kind of curls in the legs as well. So then I just take the decorative blanket that I want to show, and this one just has Pooh Bear on it. If you guys have seen my nursery tour, you guys know this is a very special and old blanket. It was made for me before I was even born. So I'm just going to kind of fluff it out a little bit so that you can see the edges, and then I'm just going to tuck it in a little bit underneath there so you can't see it when you're looking into the little nursery. Alrighty. So this is what Bowie looks after. I literally just placed him in there and I didn't do really anything. So the first thing that we're going to do is I usually start with the legs. So I'm kind of just going to adjust his feet in here a tiny bit. And then I'm going to lift it up and kind of form this bottom piece to support his heels. We kind of want the squishy part to be in with his heels. And then we're going to kind of smush it in towards his waist a little bit. Kind of get that a little bit in so it has this little curved shape. And then you can go ahead and pose the arms however you would like. Sometimes it's kind of fun to do a little bit of a curled in sort of look, or a lot of the times I'll do kind of the one hand one way and the other hand the other way. Or, you know, there's so many different things. You can kind of do the other way. You could do both arms sort of up, like they're stretching and taking a little nap. I think that that pose is cute. As you can tell, it looks so much more natural than if we just laid the doll on the this little form back here because reborns don't have backs like a real baby does, and so their back is going to be kind of filled with polyfill, a little bit squishy, and kind of in this like C curve, so it's more cuddly. But of course when a baby lays on its back, it's going to be a little bit more flat, and so that's kind of what this form does, is it just supports that like curved cuddly body area. So I kind of like this little up posture right here. And then I usually turn the neck a little bit, being careful with the hair. And you can also always put a little piece of satin or have a satin pillow under their hair if you are worried about hair loss. But yeah, I kind of like turning that way. Oh, and that looks so cute. That looks a little bit more natural because, of course, babies are very dynamic. They're not just going to hold their head in one place. And then every once in a while I do like to add props. Now, you know, when you have a real baby, you're obviously not supposed to have like a ton of blankets or pillows or stuffed animals while the baby is sleeping. And so I've kind of just gotten used to doing like, you know, a little pacifier kind of where the baby might have spit it out. Because, you know, that just happens if the baby does use a pacifier, and you are supposed to like take that away, I'm pretty sure. I don't know very much about newborns, but I think you are not supposed to have anything at all in their crib. Even this would not be like a good idea. But since we're kind of displaying our dolls as like sort of a portrait in time, or like a beautiful picture, or display that you're walking up on, I think it's kind of fun to add props, especially if you have a lot of accessories for your dolls. Shadow. But we'll just take away that pacifier for this second, and then you can kind of, you know, have the baby sort of curled up with it like they're snuggling the puppy. The little picture would look. The sweet little baby, and I actually really like this since the onesie is Ralph Lauren and it has all the teddy bears around it. I think that looks so cute. I absolutely love it, especially since it kind of looks like his hand is like trying to like, you know, grab the little and touch the hair on the dog. I think that is adorable. Like I said, it really depends on what your idea of realism is. If, you know, you're trying to kind of pretend it's like a real baby, then you wouldn't want all this extra fluff in their crib. But when it comes to like posing for like a picture, I really do like that. I think that is so, so precious. And now we're going to go on to the bouncer, and I will give a couple tips for that. Alright, so this is not the typical place for the bouncer, but I didn't have anywhere else to hold my camera, and my tripod just isn't big enough. So I'm sorry if the angle is a little bit awkward, but I hope that you guys get the idea. So this is what Winona looks if I just, you know, kind of gently set her down into the bouncer and I don't really fix anything. So one of the first things I kind of do with Winona, especially because she wears a lot of hats, just kind of fix the hat so that you can see her sweet little face. And then the next thing I usually do is usually the arms on this body are a little bit loose and so they fall back. So then the next thing is I'll just kind of bring her arms in, and that already looks a little bit better. And sometimes, I mean, actually how I plopped her looks pretty darn good, but a lot of the times I'll have to kind of move her up or move her down a little bit so that it looks more natural, because if you like have your doll like that, that looks super awkward. And then if you have your doll like that, that also looks super awkward. So it's kind of finding the happy medium inside of the bouncer that you own. I think all of them are a little bit different. And then a fun little thing that I like doing is, you know, if you had a real baby in the bouncer, they would probably be buckled in. So there are times that I do buckle Miss Winona in, and I do kind of like keeping her little feet curled. I think that's super cute. Now I gotta find where the straps are. Oh yeah, and then the straps are like all the way up here. Just one reason I don't love buckle all the time because it's kind of high up. And she's just so little. All right. Cool, cool. And I'll kind of just move her arms around a little bit. You could always do up. I think that one's a cute one, or kind of the same things that I was talking about in the crib. One over here, one over here. She's doing the little dance there. And then her feet, they curl like a very specific way, and so I always kind of have a little bit of trouble getting that right. And yet again, I'm still even adjusting like where I want her sort of in the crib. But I think this usually works out pretty well. I can never figure out which foot. There we go. That actually looks a little bit better. One foot crosses over the other a little bit better. And then her head, a lot of the times I will keep looking forward because of this little head stabilizer thing. However, I think it is still kind of cute to move the head, even if it's just like a teensy bit. That's actually pretty darn adorable. And then with Winona, or any Reborn that I have, if they're looking more in one direction, you always want to do that arm in that direction, because there is a reflex that real babies do have. It's called the, oh gosh, ATNR. If the baby turns its head, it's towards this direction, its arm sort of juts out in that way so that the baby can see its hand and start developing hand-eye coordination. And so I think it's a little bit more realistic. I mean, of course, babies kind of pose themselves in their own little ways. I've definitely seen some pretty hilarious sleeping positions that babies will do. But if you do want to do the one arm up, one arm down, and the head is turned a certain direction, you do kind of want that position. And I think that is pretty adorable. You can also do the same thing. You can do little pacifiers if you want, or you can always put up the toys to kind of where the baby would be able to see them. I think that would be kind of fun for like if I had an older baby, like when I had Miles. I don't typically leave this up at all times because it's a little bit harder to see the baby's face, and they're sleeping, so it's like that is another thing as well. It'd be more fun if, you know, you had a Reborn where they were awake. But I think this is still pretty adorable. I would totally pose my doll like that, or just keeping it back in, you know, that little peaceful snoozing position. Anyway, I hope this was helpful. I think just like general overall points is you kind of want the arms and butt area to be supported, and you want to turn and play with things a little bit to kind of create a more dynamic position, because babies don't sleep with their arms like in, you know, robot position. And so it's kind of fun to play with that, and you know, the newer the sculpt is, the better and easier it's going to be to pose that doll. But anyway, I hope that these were good and helpful tips, and if any of you guys have experience with, you know, posing real babies or Reborn photography or anything like that, I'd really love to hear some feedback, and if you have any additional tips or tricks, because I am certainly not a professional. This is all mostly personal preference and what I have seen in both Reborn and newborn photography. So yeah, anyway, you guys have a great rest of your day. Thanks for joining in on this video, and we will see you guys in the next one. Bye, everyone.